All right, so once your character is bound, the next thing we want to do is we want to paint the weights. Now, by default, it already has these weights on them, right? Because you can see it's moving it. However, you might want to make some adjustments. So here's the thing with this. I'm going to show you a bunch of ways of going about doing it, but I'm not going to ask that you might want to save what you have here. I already saved mine. Because if you go to do it, more than likely, to be honest, it's actually going to probably be worse than what the defaults are. So I'm going to show you this one method. Normally, this is how I always go about painting my weights. I'm going to show you a number of methods. This will be the first method I'm going to show you because I think it explains how the weights work the best. But just be aware that I want you to try this. I'm going to grade this really super leniently. I just want you guys to try the different methods. So just go ahead and give me your broken ones. But you might want to save the original one and then try a bunch of the methods, and then afterwards go back, and if you want to make adjustments, like you think, oh, one part doesn't work particularly well. So for instance, there's always a problem with the arms where it rips the armpit up. But you'll notice, like, by default, the leg here, it's not a problem. Like, you don't really have to do much with this. Like, this looks fine. You know, it's not the greatest. I personally, there's things I don't like about it, but it's not terrible, okay? So I just want you to be aware that we're going to do this here, but I'm not going to expect you to actually... I want you to try this, but you might want to keep the original one as well. All right, so maybe make a separate save or a special save or something. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to paint the weights on this. So I'm just going to start with the shoe. Generally speaking, when you paint the weights, it's best to work distal to proximal, meaning away from the body and towards, okay? Because that way you can do is nail this thing down, then kind of work your way in and up as you get into more complicated areas. If you try to work from the center out, you're sort of working into other problems as you're going through and things that affect each other. So usually it works best that way. So I'm going to start at the foot and just work my way up. Once you get the idea of how it works, you can just stop the video. I don't really care. I just want you to try it a little bit. All right. So I'm just going to grab the foot since it's a separate piece of geometry. I'm going to right click and you can go paint skin weights tool. You can also go to skin and paint skin weights. You might want to hit the option box on there. Does it pop up automatically? It looks like it did this time. I'm just going to go ahead and drag it into here. All right. So in this case, if I were to grab a different piece of geometry, you would see a whole bunch. But this one, you can see, only has 3. Let me see. It's got this and that, this and that. Okay. So it looks like there's some issues here. So if you look, I have, so you can see it highlights the one joint, and it's showing you the influence it has on it. Okay. So notice that this joint, where it is white is the influence it has. Where it is black means it has no influence. So that means that this joint here will slightly affect these. Okay. Now, if I select joint 4, which is this one here, you can see it's affecting all of this quite a bit. Okay. So white, and then you can see it gets to darker gray. That's how it works. All right. Now, the problem is there should be a third one here for the ball of the foot. I didn't want this joint anyway. So I'm having an issue where it's not actually, this isn't actually part of that. So this is actually good. It's not good, but it's good for showing you if you have an issue where a joint's missing, we can actually fix that. Okay. So what we're going to do is this. I'm going to hit Q or just do the select tool. And then we're going to have the foot selected. I'm going to hold shift, select this joint, select this joint, select the feet. Then we're going to go to skin, and you're going to go to, where are you? Not normalized weights. Edit influence, add influence, and hit the option box. Okay, so edit influence, add influence. You don't want to just define skin, because what it'll actually do is make another skin weight node, and that's what we want. We want to add it to the current skin weight node, the skin cluster node. So yeah, use geometry, drop off, yada, yada, yada. Don't really care. The one thing I would say is that you might want to lock weights. The reason why you want to lock weights is that if you have any painting on something already, it will make sure that those do not get affected. So it'll add this as an influence, but it will be 0. It won't have any influence. If I don't turn that on, it will try to give influence to it. Let's go ahead and lock it, because that way you can see how this works. Usually I lock it anyway. And then go ahead and hit add. Okay, now let's click back on this. And let's go back to the skin weights tool. So I'll just right click, paint skin weights tool. Now what you're going to see is I have joint 3, which is this one, joint 4, and joint 5. Now notice joint 5 is black. There's no influence on it. It should be influencing this area. So if I move this joint, nothing's going to happen. All right. Also notice that they are locked. I can unlock them right here. But you can also lock them. So if you once you get a weight and you're happy with the way it looks, you can always lock that to make sure that you don't accidentally paint over it. Okay. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add to this joint the influence, or to these vertices of this foot to this. Okay. So normally what you want to do is look for where your middle, remember I was doing this between 3 edges. So see the 3 edges here, right? These are my 3. This is the center one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to paint everything 100% till I get to this one. And you'll see why in a second. All right. So I'm going to make sure I have this joint selected. I have the geometry. We do not want to use this one. We want to use this one. The reason being, and we will go ahead and we're going to choose add. Okay. The reason why I want to use this one is that if I paint here, and let's say I have a value of 1. See, the value is 1 right here. If I paint right here, what's the vertice value of this if I paint just right here? I don't know, because it's going to be in that weird feathered part. If I click this and I paint 1 here, that vertice right here is going to be 1 because it's inside that circle. That way I know exactly what I'm painting. So generally, these are good if you're going to be smoothing. You'll see that later on. But for the most part, we usually just use the round ones. Then after that, so we're also using add, which means it's going to add weight onto what the other ones are, which will take away from the other ones. If I do replace, you could potentially kind of screw things up. So just do add. All right. So now what I'm going to do is with add, it's just B to make this bigger and smaller. I'm just going to go ahead and paint 100%. Okay, so we're just going to paint 100%. And I want to go up to this one right here. So we'll go like this. And I'm going to go right around. Okay, like so. This one right there. All right, good. So now, just a proof of concept, if I select this and I hit E, you're going to see it's going to move. Now notice it moves 100% with it. It's not very good deformation. No siree. So what we're going to do is we're now going to feather this one back onto it. Okay, so with this selected, I'll say Y because the last tool I used was the paint selection, or the paint weights tool. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the joint above it. Now notice it has no influence over here. So what I want to do is this. I want to basically have a perfect blend. So this should be 0.5 because the total value of each vertice, just so you get the idea, if I select this vertice here, if I go to Windows, General Editors, is it General Editors? Yeah, I think it is, and Component Editor. If I go to the, where are you? Smooth Skins, because that's what this is. You'll see the total value that a vertice that can have on, that joints can have on it will be 1. So right now this one only has 100% to just the one joint. But if I go into, like, let's say this elbow here, okay, and I select a vertice Q, I have to go to vertex. If I select a vertice here, you'll see that it has 0.6 of joint 2, which is, I think, this, the upper arm. It has 0.399 to the lower arm. And then I don't know why it's even showing the 0. It must have a very small amount of influence from joint 4, which I guess would be the wrist. Okay. And that's if I have this vertice selected. Okay. And if I select this one, you can see it's 0, 0.887, 0.13, but they always equal a total of a value of 1. Okay. So that's the idea. We want to make the total value equal to 1. I know this stuff is kind of boring, but this is the difference between being a professional and not a professional, like understanding what's actually happening. So what I want to have happen is I want a perfect blend from this joint to this joint in these vertices. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint 0.75, then 0.5, then 0.25. Okay. So again, let's do add. We're going to do this. I got joint 4. I got the one up here. I'm going to make this smaller. Okay. Then what we're going to do is just going to paint around this line at point. Oh, crap. So if you look, I did 1. You cannot just undo because sometimes it doesn't work. Go to the back here. I'm just going to paint this back to 100%. We're going to go here. I got to change the value to 0.75. Okay. Don't use opacity. Use this. Okay. Now we're going to paint this strip. Now it might be hard to see. So I like doing the black and white. But I'll show you there's another color option that you might find handy instead. Doink. Doink. Okay. Then we're going to do 0.5. 0.5. Okay. And then we'll do 0.25. Like so. Okay. Now, just to kind of drive this home, oops, keep menu diversity. If I select now, remember this was 100% to this joint, but I painted 0.75 to this other one. That means that now this will be 0.25. So I'm just going to go again to Window, General Editors, Component Editor, so you get the idea. Because it was 100% to this joint, and I painted 0.75 to this one, that took away the 0.75 from this one. So now the leg 5 is 0.25. Remember how I painted 0.5? Well, this was 100% to this, so now this one's 0.5 and that one's 0.5. And then if you recall, I painted 0.25 here, which means that this one will now have 0.75. Because if I put a value of one over the other, it takes away from the other. So watch, if I just type in 0.5 here, this one has to become 0.5 because it has to equal 100. And if I type in 0.75 here, it'll make this one 0.25. So what we're doing when we're painting it, we're just typing in numbers, but we're doing it visually. It just seems easier, right? So you can see now there's a gradation of influence from here to here, and it's a perfect blend. So now, if I go here and I rotate this, you will see that now it's a perfect blend. And this line here is a perfect 50% to this joint and this joint. So it blends a perfect 50. Now you might need you see that you might need to adjust that, but just be aware that that's what you're going to do. The ankle here could use a little bit of love. I'm going to leave that alone for now. But I would just do the same thing. You do, 0.5, blah, 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 blah. Hopefully that makes sense. So the idea is that we would paint up and then we paint back over and just make it like that. And the one will take away from the other. So that's fine. Let me look at the knee here. We also only need to do one side. We're going to mirror the weights onto the other side, so don't worry too much about that. Let's do the elbow next, just because I want to do another one that's just one joint across 3 edge loops, just so you get the idea again. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to right click, go Paint Skin Weights tool. All right, so I have the arm selected here, and you can see it's right now it's got the arm joint 1, which is the clavicle. That's not really the one I need. So we'll start with the elbow, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint, just so you can see too. Watch, if I rotate this, see how much volume is lost right in there, right? See how it's kind of squeezing it. To some degree, we can't entirely fix that, but we might be able to make it a little bit better, and I'm going to show you how. All right, so boom, Paint Skin Weights. All right, so first what I'm going to do is make sure this is 100%. So I'm going to type in 1 here. We're on Add, and I'm going to make this bigger. And this shouldn't have any influence. So notice that even this has a little bit off. Now it's hard to see the gradation because it's just black to white. But if you scroll down, you can see down here we have options, right? So right now it's going from black to white. You can actually turn on color ramp, and it's going to give you a Toucan Sam kind of thing going on here, right? So see the rainbow? And the idea is that at 0 it's black, at 100% it's white, and then it goes almost nothing is blue, and almost full is red, and then probably 50% is basically yellow. They have these other ones preset as well, like you can do this one, or black and white still. This one I think is a little bit more helpful because I feel like this is too many colors, but when you're trying to do really subtle stuff, it's easier to, it's more fidelity, right? Because you're not working with just value, you can get a full range. You can also just make your own. You could select this one, select this one, and then like you just click in here and you can add your own color stops, and make this like blue or something. You could do that as well if that makes you feel good. I'm gonna put it on this one here. So you can notice that this is almost 100%, but it's not. So I'm just gonna go ahead and make this 100% because that forearm shouldn't move with anything but that joint, right? Your forearm doesn't bend. It's 100% to this. Then what we're going to do is my 3 edge loops are basically this. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to paint 100% right on this. Now I have this little part in here. I'm just going to go ahead and paint that all 100%. Okay, and I'm just going to look around, and that looks good. All right, so now what I need to do is I need to go to the joint above, and I'm just going to bring it back. So we're going to go up here. I'm going to go to joint 2, because that's this one. And we're just going to do 0.75, 0.5, 0.25, and that will make the other one the opposite. So we'll do 0.75. Okay. Then we're going to do 0.5. Now notice we have an issue here, right? See how there's like one in between? So we'll fix that in a second. I'm just going to go right around this line now. All right, so this needs to be halfway between. So we'll do 0.66, right? That'd be like 6666666. And we'll just do 0.66 there, all right? And then the next one would be the next bit here. So that would be 0.25. So if I only had 2 edges to work with, like if the division was between one edge and another edge, I would do 0.66 and 0.33, right? Because I would be dividing it into thirds. I did make that 0.25, yeah. All right. And now, I'll say Q. If I grab this joint, you'll see when I go to rotate it, you can see we're losing a little less volume, right? Because we made this all 100%, so it doesn't interpolate between them. Now it's going to have a little bit. Notice that the bottom arm looks pretty good, right? But you can see the top arm. See how that's kind of pulling a little bit? That's because we didn't do that with this upper arm. So with the upper arm selected, I want to make sure none of this is really kind of moving with this. I'll just make sure I'm at 1, and I'll just paint this all white, like so. Okay, now watch. When I go to grab this and I go to rotate it, you'll see that that's not moving with it at all. But notice it's not particularly, it looks not as good, right? So there's some things we can do with that as well to kind of hopefully fix it. I'm looking at this one here. Notice that this one, that looks a little bit weird, right? So we're going to go on this, paint skin weights. And yeah, look at, I don't know if you could tell. Let me go here. See, this is a little bit different color. That one's yellow, so I must have slipped. So what I'm going to do is, this is supposed to be 0.25 to this. So I'm just going to go ahead and type in 0.25. And I'm going to grab the joint underneath. And we're just going to go ahead and paint. Oh, hang on. I got to do it the other way. We're going to do this just to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to make it 100% because it's hard to tell. We'll do 100%. And oh, weird. Why am I? Let's do back to red here. I'm the right one. I think I am. 100%, and then okay, and then we'll go to the one above, and I will do 0.25. Oh, I think I have, yeah, there was a, let me show you something. You see this vertice selected? It will only affect that vertice. So that's why when I was painting, it wasn't doing anything. Just be aware. So if I click off, click back on, now it says an object. Now I can paint it. I was wondering why it wasn't working. Okay, so this one's not quite right. So what we're going to do is, let's go to joint 2. We'll just do it this way. I'm going to make this 100%. Okay, I'm going to go to joint 3. This one should be 0.75. So I'm going to do 0.75 and paint that. Okay. Add. Oops. And now that should be more correct. So now when I go to bend this, you will see I don't have that weird little pickle in there. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. So you can apply this method to like the fingers, right? Obviously the elbow, anything that you, the knees. So this one's gonna be a little bit different because basically you're gonna have to do like, these ones are both gonna have to be 0.5 here, but then this is gonna have to be like, you're gonna have to kind of distribute the weights in a different way. But anything that has a particular point of articulation, so like elbows, fingers, like hinge joints and things, works really well. Some things will not work. So you'll see we'll do something different for the spine and the arms and things. Okay. So that is one method of weight painting is probably my most preferred one. But just so you get the idea, and you can just apply that to a bunch of things. As long as you try it on one thing, that's all I really want to see. But it is one of the things that would separate you from other people, and what actually knowing how to rig is doing this part. So as much as it might be a little bit arduous or confusing, it is an important skill.